Welcome to the Confident Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Anne, mama of two, holistic pregnancy and pediatric sleep consultant, and the founder of Empowered Decisions. In our seasons together, I'm here to help you step into your inner confidence from pregnancy to motherhood. Whether you are preparing to meet your baby or integrating into new mom life, this is a safe space with education and support for your journey. Join me as we raise the vibe of our motherhood collective. Welcome back to the Confident Motherhood Podcast. Hi, I'm Anne, your holistic pregnancy and infant and toddler sleep coach and podcast host. And I cannot believe that we are back for season 3. And somebody told me last November, like, hey, you're going to be doing this well into next year. And 3 seasons later, I would have been like, lies, all lies. And you know, sometimes that you desire to do something and then you jump into it and you commit to it and you're like, wow, this is really overwhelming. I don't have the capacity for this. Like, is this sustainable for me? And it has not felt that way at all in this podcast. Obviously, recording, coming up with topics, you know, obviously it's something that is a part of my to-do list and I have to create, but it is so fun. And essentially I'm over here talking to myself. So that's fun too. And this season, as I was planning out episodes, I'm like, this season's going to be all over the place, but that's okay because sometimes that's real life. And sometimes my brain feels all over the place. So why not keep it real? As a mom, I'm a mom of 2. I have 2 beautiful little boys. Why not just have a natural flow to these episodes? So if you're new to joining the Confident Motherhood Podcast, I am a pregnancy and sleep coach. So I help families get their little ones sleeping and I help mamas create beautiful birth experiences. And I'm a mom and I'm a single mom and I'm a business owner and I homeschool. And there's so many different parts of our journeys as women that just need to be shared. So we are kicking off this first episode of season 3 tonight, talking about how at 40 years old, I have learned the power of living life by my cycle. Like, it's crazy to even think about that. And I just recently completed a 72-hour water fast that literally is changing the game for me, which sounds crazy to say that length of hours. But I want to share this because as I've gotten older, so let's say, you know, post having children and you're busy and all these different things, that weight hasn't always came off as easy as it did when I was, let's say, in my 20s, late 20s, maybe even early 30s, where, you know, you gain a little bit and you're like, okay, let me clean up my diet and work out a little bit more, and weight was falling off. And that really hasn't been the case for me. And, you know, health and wellness is always a journey. But earlier this year, because we're in summer, I'm in summer now, and when this is coming out, this will probably be closer to fall. But earlier this year, I'm like, okay, I need to be eating more protein, right? So I'm gonna eat 100 grams of protein a day. And then I was gaining weight. And then I'm like, okay, you know, I'm going to layer in my workouts. I'm going to walk 3 to 4 days a week. I'm going to layer in weights a few days a week, gaining weight, and really feeling defeated in that. And months later, I am speaking with a family member who's mentioning about intermittent fasting. And I had done intermittent fasting years ago, but it was long before I healed my relationship with food, which is going to be an episode for another day, my journey with intuitive eating and working with a coach. So the seed is planted. I'm like, okay, I want to explore intermittent fasting again through a new lens. I've healed my relationship with food. And what does it look like to utilize your cycle in intermittent fasting? Now, if we pause there, it's wild to me that at age 40, you say the word cycle, and I've always thought, you know, younger, whether that's a decade ago, 2 decades ago, when you're talking about your cycle, you're talking about your period. And that's really just common lingo, like, oh, I'm on my cycle. But really our cycle runs all month long, right? Men have a 24-hour hormone cycle. We have an entire month hormone cycle. I was always aware that we have different phases within that cycle, right? Luteal and follicular and our menstrual and ovulation, all these different things. But I couldn't tell you which ones really come in the month, right? And what the exact order and amount of days, etc. But I could tell you that the week before my period, I'm insatiably hungry, like a garbage disposal, like nothing is satisfying to me. And in the beginning parts of my period, I'm feeling really tired and run down, but I wasn't living and making decisions around where I put my energy and how I'm eating based on my cycle. And this is where things change. So I read the book Fast Like a Girl by Mindy Pelz. And I'm hoping that I'm saying her last name correctly. It's Mindy, Mindy, obviously, Pelz, Pelz. And when I tell you I blitzed through this book, like when I get my mindset on something, I'm like, that was it. And it took me probably like 2.5 days max to read through this entire book. And it was like light bulbs started going off on which parts of your cycle you should be focusing on more of, almost like ketogenic, like lower carbohydrates, which parts of your cycle you do need to have more carbohydrates and healthy fats, and really just balancing this out. So I started just as an intro, I was like, I knew I wanted to do a water fast, and I'll tell you why, but I wanted to intro, because I can be impulsive. I'm like, oh, tomorrow I'm going to start the 72-hour water fast. Not recommended, by the way. I'm like, I'm going to intro this. For the next 2 to 3 weeks, I'm going to just start intermittent fasting. And I went back and I wish I could show you this if it was on video, but I basically, in a notebook, started with the first day that my period started. And I'll actually read that to you. Oh, wait, do I have that with me right now? No, that's okay. But I can show you for this month exactly. So on June 1st, was the first day of my period. So I was like, oh, it's easy to remember. And then I basically wrote out, like, the cycle can vary between like 24, 28 days, something like that. So I wrote down the date of the month, like all of those dates until I got to that like 28 day end. And then I wrote the cycle days. So like June 1st was day 1 of my cycle. And I wrote 1 through 28 all the way down. And then every cycle is broken up into chunks. So the way the book breaks it down is like the first 10 days, you're in a power phase. So it's actually a really good time to be doing longer fasts. So when I originally kicked all of this off, I was in May, I was kind of like in the middle of my cycle. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do the 2 to 3 weeks of intermittent fasting, just following the guidelines, whether it's just like a 13 or 15 hour fast, and then jump into the higher fast. And then I'll move on with the 72 hour. So what was interesting to me, of what I noticed right away, because I had done a water fast before, I had attempted intermittent fasting before, is it felt like I was white knuckling it, just the hardest thing, feeling like I'm starving all day long. Like I powered through years ago, but it was not easy. And what it did was it sent me into binge cycles where once you're eating again, I felt like I didn't have control over it. So I do think it's important, and I will later on share my journey with intuitive eating, but I had that taste in my mouth, like this is going to be really hard. And when I tell you it was effortless, yes, of course, you have moments you're like, oh, I'm hungry. It was effortless because of where in your cycle you have your hormones. So for example, in the first, like why Mindy recommends, like if you're going to do a longer fast, you're going to kick off a 72 hour, do it when your period first starts. Why? Because all of our hormones are very low. So we're talking estrogen, progesterone, oxytocin, all these things are really low. So while yes, I'm still run down in my first few days, I wasn't like super starving. I wasn't having surges and craves and these sorts of things. So I made it through my first, after, a couple weeks of intermittent fasting, moved my way into a 72-hour water fast, and I felt so alive. And one thing I really remembered from the last time I did the water fast is how much mental clarity you have when food is not a part of your day-to-day. One, it was kind of a nice little break from having to constantly think of what am I eating for breakfast, lunch, dinner, because I'm already doing that for my children. But it was so great to just have this clarity again. It's almost like light bulbs, like, come on, you feel so connected in a way. And to share the weight loss piece about it, which I didn't want to kick off this episode in that way, because I feel like that's always attention grabbing, which is a great thing. But that was not my main goal in all of this. I felt like my body's just been stuck, is how it's felt. And when I read through her book, she kind of describes how doing these longer fasts, which you don't have to do them all the time, it can literally be like twice a year, can just help to unstuck you, to like take you out of this resistance in your body to like fat burning mode and autophagy and all these other like really beneficial and health processes that our bodies naturally do when we get our body into a state that it can actually do that. And that's really what I felt. So to share a bit about numbers, just in my first 2 to 3 weeks of intermittent fasting, again, just not really modifying too much of what I was eating. For my eczema, which again, story for another day, I generally avoid gluten and dairy and, some other just pickiness eater sort of things. So I kind of just kept on with my normal diet. I was just eating within a certain amount of hours. So for example, of that, maybe in the evening, I would stop at 6 or 7 p.m. And then depending on where I'm at in my cycle, maybe I'll eat at the 13-hour mark, the 15-hour mark, the 17-hour mark, which in the mornings for me is really easy because I'm busy with the kids. So it wasn't like like based on where my hormones were, I was waking up like super starving. And I would also allow me to listen to my body. And I could tell when I was shifting into the different parts of my cycle because I would tell how hungry I was when I woke up in the morning. And that was wild. But in that first 2 to 3 weeks, sorry to continue dragging this on, is I lost about 5 pounds, maybe between 5 and 6 pounds, let's say. And then I went into the 72-hour water fast and I lost 6 pounds on that. And again, of all the things I've done this year, I got to work out more. I got to eat more protein. I got to do all these things that really felt forced and almost like an obligation. Here I was really just modifying the hours in which I was eating, and my body was really responding. And it really felt full circle to me in a way that when we align, like I'm very spiritual and I also love like the cycles of the moon. And I think our cycles also mirror that in a way of how we're feeling. And I think that it just has allowed me to go deeper within myself and to have a better understanding, because we know that we can feel crazy. Like, why am I so short tempered today? Or I'm really tired today. Or this day, I feel like I want to create a million things in my business and start a podcast and like take over the world. And it is literally in our hormones. It is literally in these cycles. And as I've been breaking this down over the past couple months and looking at I'll just keep going back to these notes and, scratched on a piece of paper where I'm like, oh, okay, now I can see and I can plan into it. So like last week, I wasn't in the headspace where I'm ready to start recording and doing all these things in my business. And girl, when I tell you in the past 48 hours, the things that I've gotten done on my checklist, created, done, put out into the world. And I'm like, and this is why I'm in this phase. So I can intentionally plan into that. So this really has been a game changer for me. I highly recommend, whether you just want to be more connected with your cycle or you're feeling stuck with your body, which oftentimes this happens, right? After we have kids and we don't either have the same motivation or we don't have the same time that we had. Things look different in our life and our priority, but you have to pour into yourself. And as you pour into yourself, you will feel more confident. And then you are a better version for yourself and your children. And if this feels aligned for you at all, or this has been that pull to be like, I also want to explore that, please read the book. Please do your research. Talk with your provider to make sure that you're making decisions that feel good for you. Don't be me years ago to be like, I'm going to jump into a 72-hour water fast. Not recommended. But when I did it in the right way and I allowed myself to just be in that journey, like, Anne, just learn, get your questions answered. Because I had lots of questions. Like, do I still take supplements while I'm doing this fast? Answer is no, by the way. Like, I got my questions answered, did it in the right way. And I felt like energetically, I was in that space to really receive and surrender into the process. Weight was falling off. I'm feeling better. I'm feeling more aligned and connected. And I was like, I have to share this. So it wasn't always my original intention. Like, I'm going to kick off season 3 of the Confident Motherhood podcast, talking about water fasting and hormones. But I actually think that it is divinely perfect. So check her out, Dr. Mindy Pelz. Mind you, I'm not connected with her in any capacity. This is really my personal story with this book and how this is helping me with not only my mental clarity, but my health, my wellness, my body, all the things. And I just really wanted to share that with you. So we have so much more coming in season 3 of the podcast, and I can't wait for you to tune in. So until the next time, lots of love. Whether you're a tired mom struggling with your little one's sleep or an expecting mom looking for empowerment and advocacy as you prepare for birth, I'm here to show up for you with proven strategies and education to elevate your journey. You deserve to feel heard and given the tools to have success. Mama, you do not have to navigate your pregnancy or sleep struggles alone. Head over to empoweredwithanne.com to discover how we can support you. Confidence, empowerment, and peace are just a click away.